The problem is that both sides of the post office are failing. Post Office Limited is clearly failing because of its attitude to the people who were working for it, the attitude to the postmasters and postmistresses, and its aggressive response. And Royal Mail is failing because it quite clearly doesn't deliver what it promises to deliver. You can't rely on Royal Mail. You can't rely on Post Office Limited. Now, for ordinary people, there is no distinction between Royal Mail and Post Office Limited. That distinction is spurious. The distinction is spurious anyway, because Post Office Limited, which is supposed to be a private company, is actually wholly owned, effectively. The only shareholder is the government. So the whole nonsense of this privatized rubbish is that it doesn't work. So if we could see that both Royal Mail and the Post Office were working, then maybe we could be happier. Let's listen first of all. I've got two small clips, or I've got two small clips and a long clip. So let's do the small clips first. These are the small clips from hearings in committee in Parliament with the Royal Mail, and it's about the Royal Mail's prioritising of parcels and stuff from Amazon and so on that bring in money, and its complete contempt for ordinary post. Now, I know from experience that this is a fact. It's not a one-off instant, because I know I received a letter about 10 days after it was sent, first class, telling me that a good friend had died and that her funeral was about 10 days hence. I received it on the day of the funeral with no possibility of going. I was absolutely incredulous that a first-class letter could be delivered like that. I called Royal Mail. I was told to contact a particular number or something. I don't remember the absolute details. I did. I got nowhere. Eventually I got a letter back saying that yes, there was a local problem and this had now been resolved and they would do their best in the future. That isn't a sufficient answer, is it? You rely on the post system. If the post system isn't reliable, it doesn't work. Listen to what's going on here.
Last week, once we'd advertised that this session was happening, to tell me that you do, in fact, prioritise parcels over letters. And in fact, he sent me a picture of a poster that's on his rack in one of your offices. And I'll just read you what it says here. This is from last week, where it says, "The future is parcels. Unless your manager directs you otherwise, these are your priorities on delivery each day. Number 1, premium items and collections. Number 2, large parcels. Number 3, lapsing, including all parcels. And number 4, at least half of the delivery points on your frame, including letters." So letters are ranked number 4 in the priority list, and only half of them. So you're unilaterally only delivering on 50% of your USO, aren't you, Mr. Thompson?
There used to be a time when you could post a letter and you could be sure it would reach its
I'm
destination.
actually aware
on the
of that
following
particular
day.
correspondence, which was done in one delivery office, and it was dealt with, and it was a local action.
But this isn't true. Who wrote this poster, Mr. Thompson?
That is absolutely not our policy.
Well, it's on a Royal Mail poster that your workers are being asked to read when they go to work. If that's not Royal Mail policy, how else do you communicate Royal Mail policy?
That is absolutely not our policy.
I'd remind you, Mr. Thompson, that misleading Parliament is not something that we appreciate here on the committee. And I think if this is not the case, you're going to need to write to us with sufficient details afterwards to prove that that's changed. Why do you think your predecessor has criticised you in public for not having enough experience in mishandling this situation?
You know, I really believe in Royal Mail. I believe in the brand. I believe in the opportunity to grow the business. I think we've got an absolutely wonderful opportunity ahead of us. I think when the board made the appointment for me, it was around understanding the customer, understanding the digitisation of the business, and getting the changes that we need to win. And I was listening to the debate just before, and I think it's important.
And actually the same charges are advanced by the same Labour MP here.
Are all of these rogue posters, Mr. Thompson, or do you not know what's going on in your business?
That's the nub. Incompetence or bloody-mindedness.
That, by its very nature, is a systemic failure because it is a system-wide failure. I'm asking you whether you agree with that, yes or no.
We do everything that we can to
Do
make
you
sure...
agree with what I just said? Yes or no?
Can I, just for clarity again, Chair, just so that I'm
I
clear
think
on the
that's a
questions that I've
fairly
been answering.
clear statement. I think it sums it up rather well. Now listen to the chaos that PaulaVennells gets into when she's trying to defend the indefensible, and this is about her withholding information or not knowing. It doesn't matter, really. Does it matter whether she is incompetent or malicious? It doesn't matter, does it? It's not working. Her system is not working. It's further testimony that the Post Office and Royal Mail are failing. Listen. It's quite long, by the way.
Paula, why don't you give those files over? What's the problem?
So I think the point I want to pick up first, if I may, is...
No, just answer my question first. Why won't you give Ian Henderson those files?
We
Why?
have, as far as I'm aware, Mr Zahawi, we have shared whatever information was appropriate on every
That's
single
not what Ian Henderson's saying.
It is the first time personally I have heard that. I'm very happy to go away and have a look. Second Sight...
He has evidence saying that under no circumstance he'd be given those files. That's what you've just told me. Is that right?
We've not been given those files.
You've been told by
Angela, I don't know...
Paula's
whether-
organisation that under no circumstance you'd be given those files. Is that right or wrong?
Who told you that, Ian?
It came up at one of the working group meetings which you and I were present at.
Ian is...
I don't recall that
Ian is
conversation.
completely...
Well, this sounds like a
right.
shambles to me. You came in here and opened by saying the system's working beautifully. You now realise why you're in front of the committee. Is that right?
The system, the reason, Ian said he is quite right. The reason we set up this mediation scheme was to get to the truth about the system. The system itself
But
is
you've been
working very
obstructive.
well.
Is what we're hearing from Ian is that your organisation has been obstructive to his independent work. Is that right or wrong?
It's wrong. We have provided for every single case detailed, thorough, independent investigation. They run to pages and pages of reports. There are, on average, 80
Right, let me just stop
pieces
you
of
here.
evidence.
But we've
that
just
they
heard
provided.
from Ian Henderson, who is independent and looking for this, that you have not provided the prosecution files that they think they should look at. Your files, not just what's publicly available. They need that information. Will you provide it? Yes or no?
Mr Zahawi, you have just heard, it's the first time I have heard that piece of
I'm just
information.
asking a commitment from you. You're the head of the organisation. Will you provide it? Yes or no? Simple answer.
Mr Henderson is a forensic accountant. He is not a legal qualified individual, neither am I.
I'm just asking
I am
you,
not
will you
prepared
provide it,
on
yes or no?
behalf- I'm not prepared on behalf of the Post
Right.
Office.
I've got my
to
answer,
give
so you won't-
No,
you won't
you
provide.
haven't got your answer. You haven't heard a yes or no. I'm simply saying that at the moment I'm not able to answer your question.
Why?
Because I do not know the details of the
You
situation.
used to provide the information. You've stopped providing it. Will you provide it going forward? Yes or no?
I am not aware what we have provided previously that we stopped. Angela has been involved daily for the last 2 years on this. She sits on the working group alongside Ian the Second Sight.
Right.
If there is a misunderstanding,
Angela, will you
I'm very
provide
happy
it?
to take
If your
this
CEO
from Mr.
can't answer,
Chairman.
will you answer my question? Will you provide the prosecution files as requested by Ian Henderson? Yes or no?
As Ian said, we have previously provided them, and we have provided the information necessary for those investigations as a pack. So there's thousands of pieces of information already provided to Second
But
Sight.
we've heard already that he has been obstructed from getting the files, the legal files that you use internally, which he used to get before, right? That is what I've heard.
Yes.
Will you now commit to providing those files going forward?
So,
yes or no?
So this has been. So we have provided them to Second Sight early in the investigation.
Right.
That's
Will
been
you
2
go
years.
forward to provide?
So if you could let me finish, please. We have been working with Second Sight over the last few weeks to get to an understanding of what we need to provide. We are working through those, and information has been flowing.
So you don't
to us.
understand what you need to provide?
So what we agreed at the outset we would provide, we have been providing, and there are some cases that actually Second Sight have concluded their investigation on that basis. And what's been asked in the last few weeks is access to further information that we weren't providing on
What
the agreement.
what
that we
he's
had.
asking you here, there's no wriggle room here, is to provide the prosecution files going forward. Will you commit to doing that? That's all I'm asking.
So what I'm saying is we have already been exchanging that information over the last few weeks.
So you have been
As-
providing it?
We have been providing that for the last few weeks.
Is that right, Mr. Henderson?
So there we've got it. Adding this to the extraordinary drama on ITV, and that drama apparently, the producer sent out a note beforehand saying, oh, you know, it will find its place. It's not expected to be compelling viewing. It's not going to grab the headlines. But yes, it did. Yes, it did, because it's telling a serious story in a beautiful way. It was beautifully framed. It was beautifully acted. It was beautifully presented. It was beautifully written. But also, it was telling a true story. And something in that story, you know, it plucks at the heartstrings. Now, the Private Eye have been running that story for years and years, and I've been following it for years and years, and it's so rewarding to see all that effort paid off. Sometimes it takes a long time. But it takes a long time because the system, it's not just in Britain. I remember dealing with Greece. The system is so desperate to protect its own. The system does not want to be seen to fail. But there are times when you have to look at the evidence and say, this is not working. The Post Office, the Royal Mail, in their present form, need to be completely reformed or closed down and restarted. And if restarted, we need to make sure that the Post Office is there to serve the community in every community. That was the original aim of the Post Office. Do you remember? I think it was another ITV drama about the beginnings of the Post Office back in the 19th century. We need to recapture that spirit, and we need to recognise that our public services are there for the public. Whether they are privately funded or publicly funded at central government, they are there to serve the community. And when they serve the community rewards them.